welcome to Show and Tell with History Calendar. Just gonna go through some older books and so forth that I have in my collection. Decided to make some videos for you guys, but yeah, here's the first episode. So for the first episode, I decided to touch upon, I already wrote an article or a thread on X about this, but this is a small little pamphlet dating to 1889. It was originally published by the New York World, which was a pretty popular newspaper, obviously out of New York City, during the late 19th century. From 1883 until 1911, it was actually published under Joseph Pulitzer, so quite a famous name in the journalism sphere. But yeah, I have no idea how this came into my collection. Technically, all the stuff that I'm going to be sharing over the coming weeks are from my grandparents' attic, but it wasn't from them. They didn't collect it, so it must have been from the previous owner, since it's an older house anyway. And I don't know how that got there. Very random assortment of things, but oh, this is one of them. So basically, as I've said, why want anything from the New York World? 1889, as we start going through it, we could tell that it's very fragile. Whatever binding it has is holding on for dear life. But yeah, just looking at the top here, we could see the gladdest pleasures are those allied with the unexpected. How well readers of the world are aware of this. So pretty much for context, from what I've been able to find, this was published just before the Centennial, celebrating 1 century since George Washington's inauguration in New York City. So obviously the city that this is published from. But this was made after Benjamin Harrison was sworn in as president in March of that year. So really we're just looking at a tight window of from early March to late April of that year where this must have been published, as I'll go through later. You guys will be able to see. But yeah, you can see we got a Star of Discovery, kind of highlighting some of the main European explorers who, explored that part of the New World from, where is it? I'm just trying to organize. We got Columbus on this star. We have John Cabot, 1497, North America. We have Magellan, 1520, top left, first to circumnavigate the world. So clearly we're looking at, not just celebrating the centennial of the inauguration, but also just kind of like American history in general up to that point. So yeah, as you can see, copyright. Oops, let's get in focus. 1889, so that's cool. Looking over here, we can see our first entry in the book is about Christopher Columbus himself. Got to start somewhere. Up here, as we can see, in the year 1400, the world was supposed to be flat. During the years 1860 to 82, the world was known to be flat. So one thing I noticed while going through this is that the New York World was definitely one of those yellow journalism papers, so I was definitely trying to get attention. There's also some wit in here, so it's actually kind of interesting to see them trying to be funny and stuff like that. But obviously they're touching upon the fact that they thought the world was flat, or people in the 19th century mistakenly thought that people at the age of discovery thought that the world was flat and that Columbus proved it was round. Obviously that was not the case. Pretty much everyone agreed that the world was round. It was just more so the size that was kind of up for interpretation. But yeah, trying to be a little bit witty about the paper being flat. So gotta love that, I guess. But yeah, as you can see, we have a little engraving of Columbus here. Interestingly enough, this pamphlet, I'm not sure, I haven't counted how many pages it is, really just focuses on, it focuses on Columbus and then all the presidents up until that point of when this was published. But only Columbus and Washington actually have detailed biographies, whereas everyone else really just gets like a page at most. So clearly there was a little bit of favoritism there. But yeah, as you could see, Columbus, I'm trying to be gentle here. We have some pretty nice engravings in here. The ships of Columbus, as you can see, it details a little bit of his first voyage. Even shows a map showing his initial voyage and where he went. Yeah, I'm just trying to see. And then he was Columbus died in 1506, unaware of the future greatness of the New World. And everybody today concedes the greatness and prosperity of the New York world. Gotta love whoever wrote this. Definitely had a lot of wit in trying to hype up their paper. Here's another engraving flipping the page to show the seat of government of the U.S. You can see the Capitol building in D.C. Clearly, it looks identical basically to what it looks like now. By this point, the new Capitol Dome had been finished for over 20 years, finished right around the Civil War. So from here on out, it's the Capitol building that we know and love. And then the seat of the news of the United States is the world at New York. So I feel like even though this is something published by the New York World, they're going to keep on hammering home the fact that this is in fact the New York World that we are reading. Otherwise, once you go on from there, after the death of Columbus, kind of goes through almost like point by point some important things that happened in U.S. history from that point on. So after his death in 1506, we can see Ponce de Leon discovered Florida, and then from there, kind of like other pre-revolutionary events, such as Sir Walter Raleigh naming Virginia. We have Henry Hudson discovering Manhattan, and the first house is built in 1612. It just goes on from there and kind of goes through a lot of these colonial era events. Interesting to think about the fact that since this was published in 1889, so that's over almost 136 years ago as of when I'm filming this, some of these events, especially towards the end of the 17th century, are almost as close to them in time as we are to when this was published. So kind of interesting to look back at. Otherwise, once you flip the page, leading up to the beginning of the 18th century, early 18th century, they kind of go and start with George Washington. So as I mentioned before, really just touching upon Washington's biography more than anyone else other than Columbus. So you can see he was born in 1732 of English ancestry. You can see they have a little sketch of Mount Vernon, his homestead. But yeah, it's just interesting to see how, people in the late 19th century would write about Washington. Up until that point, there had only been 23 presidents. So nearly just about half of what we're at now. So certainly interesting to see, just it's interesting to get into the framework of people in the past, recalling their own past. So at this point, Washington obviously had just been sworn in as president 100 years prior, and here we are over 100 years after when this was published. So pretty cool, just looking into their frame of mind. Here we have Washington, obviously, and pretty much from the rest of the book onward, they have these little engravings of each of the presidents, kind of showing when they were president, their term. And they also happen to break down, I don't know, I haven't figured out the rhyme or reason of the timing that they do this, but they show each year how many copies of the New York World were published, or printed. So in case you forgot that this is a New York World print, pretty much every page will remind you of the fact. So certainly very proud of their publication. So anyway, yeah, you can see it continues onward, detailing his life, also kind of interspersing some events elsewhere within the colonies and within New York. Crossing the Delaware, 1776, during the American Revolution. Pretty iconic engraving. I'm assuming at this point, I'm not actually quite sure when the famous Crossing of the Delaware painting was painted, the one that looks just like this one. Don't quote me on this. I think it was the 1850s. If that's wrong, I admit that, but I'm pretty sure that it was, hence why this later publication was able to kind of make this engraving based off that. Going forward, kind of jumps ahead to the main topic of what this whole pamphlet's about, is the centennial of his inauguration. As you can see, representing where he was sworn in spring of 1789. I won't go through all the details of all this writing. Maybe you'll be able to pick it up if it's clear enough to pause, but certainly interesting to see how it kind of goes through his life as, general and his time during the American Revolution, and eventually his presidency. It also ends, obviously, with his death on his deathbed in 1799. Yeah, definitely interesting stuff. I'll even show his grave at Mount Vernon. So, yep. There, inauguration, April 30th, 1789. Then you have him on the quarter. So beyond that, once we get on to John Adams, president number 2, this is where things kind of get a lot more shortened, and we definitely spend less time talking about each subsequent president. Even for some of the other big founding fathers like Adams and Jefferson, just don't get as much love as Washington. You can see he was born in October 1735. Kind of details his education and background. Really just, wow, that is short. Only within like 2 sentences, it already touches upon the fact that his death and where he died. And I don't think it goes on any further. Yep, because there's Jefferson. So it doesn't even touch upon his actual presidency. Just, you know, the dates and nothing more. You can continue on. The top of each page goes through different events within the United States that was going on, as well as like who was president during that similar time frame, and a very short rundown of who they were and what they did. Not even touching about like what they did during their term. I guess what's important in this publication is that they do touch upon how each of these presidents died. Also touches upon their faith. So you could see Thomas Jefferson, they said, was a liberal in his faith, and he died of chronic diarrhea, which is, I don't know, pleasant. Then we move on to James Madison, and we touch upon similar stuff, going into the fact that he was he died of debility and was Episcopal in faith. I won't show all these guys in equal detail because otherwise this video might get a little bit longer than expected. As you can see, it kind of goes through all of them. Famous, you know, some of these engravings are probably better than others. But yeah, flip through, we have Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren. Even good old William Henry Harrison has just as long of a bio as anyone else, even though he was only president for like a month. So, I don't know, I guess he made the cut. Yeah, continue on. John Tyler, James Polk, Zachary Taylor, Millard Fillmore, Franklin Pierce. Oops, I think I just skipped. James Buchanan. Even Abraham Lincoln gets a very short entry here. Obviously mentions his assassination and his Methodist faith. Flipping these pages with one hand is definitely easier said than done. Let's keep skipping these pages. I wonder if they touch upon the fact that Johnson was impeached. Nope, doesn't say anything about that. So clearly very brief discussions about the presidents. We have Grant. Yeah, it seems like, just now that I'm looking more at it, really just touches upon his very early life, when they married, when they were elected, and pretty much their cause of death and so forth. So really hardly touching on really anything in their lives besides very basic, trivial aspects. We have Rutherford B. Hayes, James Garfield. Let me see what this type up here is smaller for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on up here. Oh, we have a little blurb here from Joseph Pulitzer, I guess. Chester Arthur, Grover Cleveland. I wonder if he'll come back. See, his first term is only talked about here. No mention of his second term. Obviously, since this was published in 1889, hadn't happened yet. Oh, it even shows the results of some of the recent elections, both electoral and popular vote. You can see very close result in the popular vote between Cleveland and Harrison. Technically, Cleveland won the popular vote, but he lost the electoral vote. So he would get his second time in the sun, I guess, 4 years later. And then finally, the current day is 1889 when this was published. You can see mentions how Benjamin Harrison was sworn in on March 4th, 1889 in DC. This one, since he is the current president at the time, kind of goes a little bit more through his life and details. So you know, good for him, I guess. But yeah, as you can see, since it mentioned that he was inaugurated on the 4th, we know that this was published after his inauguration, but before the Centennial celebrations. And then here we have Levi P. Morton, who was the vice president under Harrison. Even he gets more written about him than presidents that are actually remembered today. Not saying that Morton wasn't important, but you know. Anyway, so towards the end of the book, we kind of look through the inauguration that occurred in 1789 in New York City. Kind of even went through blurbs from the Gazette of the United States that was published that very year, kind of going through some of the events that occurred in celebration. And here we go a little bit further down. We can see they go through basically the program of what was expected and planned out for the Centennial, also being held in New York City in 1889. So even though the event, or the anniversary itself was on April 30th, I guess some of the earlier celebrations began a couple weeks earlier on April 17th. But yeah, it seemed like quite a busy lineup they had going on. I remember seeing over here, they're welcoming to the city. They have, arriving on Wall Street, they have President Harrison's going to be welcomed by Governor of New York and the Mayor of New York City. So certainly they had quite a big celebration to be had for the Centennial. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, it just keeps going. So more events lined up. They had a ball going on. And yeah, you can see the anniversary itself looks like it was on a Tuesday, April 30th. They were going to have a service of Thanksgiving in one of the churches in New York City. So pretty cool stuff. Definitely interesting to see written by people at the time, looking at how it went. And they looks like they were having a parade as well. It seems cool. Even up here they have something. It's just them talking about how many was their daily circulation of the world. They always find a way to bring it up. So yeah, pretty cool. So not too much to go through, I guess, in this opening show and tell, but pretty cool to look through, see kind of how history was viewed back then, I guess, recounting all the 23 presidents up until that point, as well as some of the celebrations being had for the Centennial. But yeah, if you like it, I plan on doing more of these videos down the road. I have a whole bin full of different like newspapers and books and so forth, dating from basically from around the Civil War up until the first half of the 20th century. So certainly we'll make more of those. And for those not subscribed, I'll make more like threads as opposed to these videos that'll go a little bit more briefly through these different documents. But otherwise, thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.